and stayed there for like 6 weeks. But that's
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Boncher of Radio Retrofuture, and today we kind of have a double feature with two offers today, David Trotter and MD Boncher. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing? Um,
doing well.
all right,
Doing well as well. Just hanging in there.
hanging in there. Yeah, shuffling the Kickstarter stuff. We'll be starting with you, David, this evening with Chains of a Broken God. That's currently live on Kickstarter. He's already shared my Kickstarter on there as well. And so we keep supporting each other. And MC Boncher, who currently... Yeah, you just got your new book out, right?
It releases December 8th, The Waking Nightmares. that is available on Amazon, Smashwords, and dozens of other bookstores. The print copies are about to go live for pre-order, and you should be able to then order them through your favorite bookstore that's affiliated with the Ingram Spark system. So I am global with that.
All right, all right. As the viewers of my channel already know, we've got our Kickstarter currently live, but I will not spend too much time on that as I've been chilling that on Wrangler's channel, Frequency Studio, just now. We'll talk about a little bit on the halfway point before going over to our second guest. So we're going to start with you, David, for tonight. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up being here.
Well, so it's a fun situation. I think like most authors, it was always kind of a dream. I grew up writing and enjoying literature of all different kinds. Big Tolkien head, as most fantasy people are. Big fan of the dystopian. So I was a big fan of Blade Runner when it came out, which kind of lends to how I ended up here, right? So a love of fantasy, love of space operas, love of that kind of dystopian era. My wife's a big Trekkie. I'm more of a dystopian type space guy, um, but I really got into. A few years back, I really got into more of that like Victorian era, the classical era, Elizabethan, just like where you still got swords, you still got armor, you've still got all the classical fantasy tropes, but then you can also have some more fun with it, with that kind of gas lamp, and then bleeding into steampunk. And that's where I really landed with my series that I'm working on. A lot of those traditional fantasy tropes kind of subverted here and there, and then throwing in a little bit more firepower, I guess, and some spaceships and aircrafts and all kinds of fun stuff.
All right. So yeah, your new book. Is this your first book?
No, so I currently have two full-length novels out, and then a short story as well. That short story is kind of a prelude to my current work. Um, this is book two, though. I know I said I have those other ones out. So I wrote Birthrights, which you can see behind me right here. That's my first book. Azure Tides takes place in the same universe. It's kind of a meshing of Pirates of the Caribbean with Avatar: The Last Airbender, kind of throwing it all in there with vampires. So a big fun out at sea. Lots of for the anime fans out there, a little bit of anime-esque kind of scaling, but just really kind of leaning into that piratey theme with. But I was like, hey, pirates, but what if vampires? And it was a lot of fun to kind of write that
Vampirates.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank
Vampirates.
you. Mhm.
It's funny.
Lots
I
of
just
fun.
watched a video about the Taiping Rebellion that included an episode actually called the Vampire Fleet. That's an actual historical thing. I need to delve into it more. But it was kind of like a mercenary fleet that I think served on the side of the rebels at the time. Riches asks, question for Professor Trotter: do you miss your days at Oxford?
I wish I went to Oxford. That would have been nice. I've lived at a place where ox used to ford, but that's totally different. It's just I'm from a very small town in Arkansas in the United States, so I'm a hillbilly backwoods kind of boy. But I'm trying my best to make things happen.
Right. Mr. Boncher, do you have some questions for our guest, perhaps?
Not at the moment. I'm just enjoying and getting familiarized with his work, and uh, just enjoying the backstory. I'm also a Blade Runner is my favorite movie of all time, so I'm right down the same pike that way. I love me some neo noir, and I I'm in the mountains of West Virginia, so when you're
Okay, where
talking
at?
hillbilly, I'm a dislocated cheesehead. I'm an expat from Wisconsin, and now I'm down in West Virginia, living up in the mountains. So
What
you gotta
part?
dare hate y'all.
So I lived in Franklin, West Virginia for a few minutes. So up above Harrisonburg, Virginia. So
I'm in the wilds
Franklin
of
County.
Greenbrier County. So if
Okay, there you go.
you know where that is, White Sulphur Springs, and and Lewisburg. I'm up in the county, hiding in the mountains somewhere
There you go.
Yeah,
in a secret
Other
bunker.
Shenandoahs.
yeah, and I live in the hills in one of the flattest countries in the world. Well, no, we're not. I'm not below sea level anymore, but I used to.
Oh, that's a plus.
Yeah.
So it's not like the definition of a North Dakota forest, 4 trees within a mile of each other.
Well, I do have a lot of forest around me, and historical castles. So I'm in that part of the Netherlands, but yeah. Yes, and we got the joke. Thank you, Riches. Yes, what did I want to say? Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what now the title eludes me all of a sudden. The Chains of an Unbound God, and what the inspiration for the book was.
Yeah, so when I wrote my first draft of my first book, Chains of a Broken God, Birthrights, and Azure Tides was all one book. Now, they are not small. Again, epic fantasy, Lord of the Rings. I think this one's clocking in at like 587 pages. So we're not small at any means. And so my total word count when I finished my first draft was about 480,000 words. And I said, hey, nobody's gonna
Oof.
read this, nobody's gonna buy this. So I started strategically breaking it up. The first Oath, which was that short story that I wrote, was the original prologue to my first book. So I've learned how to pace. I've learned how to break it up. I'm no Martin, I'm no Rothfuss, but I've like, hey, I've got to break this up some. I got to make it make sense. Chains of a Broken God really. So to understand it, my first book, Birthrights, it takes off my titular character, my main guy. His name is Darius. He's a warrior. I wanted a very classic hero, and then I wanted throughout the series to start to subvert that expectation of what it means to be a hero and what it means to have a purpose. He is cursed. He wakes up 1,000 years later in a world he doesn't understand or know. So he's trying to navigate himself. So like to just kind of like get into the minutia of it, I obviously love vests. One of the first things he did is when he wakes up and he gets taken in by this kindly priest, they give him a set of clothes and he can't figure out how to button up his shirts because it's something we don't think about. But if you've never had buttons before, he's fumbling around and it's just kind of like one of those things that it's like, and then watching him change and grow and like experience this whole new world. Chains of the Broken God, the reason that name is what it is, one, I can't say all of it because spoilers, but it's really diving into what holds us down and then what holds us up, and then just like the dark backside of a society, because we live in a society kind of thing, right, where this society that he is a part of, that he's woken up in, it is very Orwellian, I guess you could say, like in a sense, where like it's very much controlled and ran, and like what the world is showing it should be isn't always what it is on the back end. So you get his major point of view on the side of the state and the church. So he is experiencing this new world through the eyes of the people who control it. And then there's another character on the backside who's in the slums, and she is experiencing it at the bottom. And so you're reading, and you're like, hey, this is like almost a utopian-esque world. And then you start reading from her perspective. You're like, oh, wait a minute, this is not great. And then it's like, who is trust? What is evil? What is good? What is bad? And that's really Chains of a Broken God. Once the blindfold is peeled off, you really get into it in that next book.
All right, all right.
Yeah, Blade Runner is I'm a big Blade Runner fan, so
And it sounds like a really intense setting.
it's fun.
All right. So before we get on with the rest of your inspiration, what can you tell us about the Kickstarter? What are you offering?
Yeah.
Is this is not your first Kickstarter, is it?
No, so this is actually this will actually be my third Kickstarter. Well, technically it's fourth. So I ran a Kickstarter for Birthrights to make it a book, and then I ran another one to make it into an audio book. I then ran one for Azure Tides, which funded enough to make it into a book and an audiobook. Chains of a Broken God right now. We are at about the 300% mark from a funding perspective. We are still a ways away from it becoming an audiobook right now, but some of the things that make this Kickstarter unique and this book unique is in the past, in all of my books, and I'll flip through this really quickly. I have a great artist that I work with, and he does like sketches and artwork throughout all the book, and they're amazing, and I think they're really cool, but they're all black and white. Chains of a Broken God, through this Kickstarter, it's going to be full color when it comes to the imagery and the art. There's a couple of those in the Kickstarter. You can see one of my major villains and my titular hero. They're both already done. If we hit $4,000, he's already started working on the next one, which I can't tell you what it is. And then I'm about to put a poll up next week for that 5th full page artwork. As if we hit that next stretch goal as well. So that's what makes this one really unique is the full coloration print of a full size novel, and it will only be available through Kickstarter. I will not be opening a house up. Obviously, whatever artwork gets done, we'll grayscale them into black and white, and we'll put them in the mass market that'll go on Amazon and Ingram Spark and all other places. But this will be something unique that this will be it for this run.
All right, understood. Are there any particular, because you are offering the mostly the collection? Is there any other particular reward or tier or add-on you would like to highlight?
Again, you can get just like the standard book, right? Like you don't have to go the full bundle, which is actually it's been the most hit is the full bundle. I think people are just trying to get into the series. They see they can get all the books, but you can get just the single book alone. There's also some pretty cool add-ons with like you're grabbing the audio books at under Audible code price. So I'm offering them lower than what you can get them per credit on Audible. And then again, with each of the stretch goals we hit, there's additional things. Obviously, I'm writing a steampunk-ish book, so I've got different factions that are happening in my world. So right now we have these stickers that are like what are on the patches of the different worker guilds. So we've already hit that goal. So everybody who buys anything physical is going to get those stickers regardless of what. So if you bought like one book, those are going to be on there. Next stretch goal is going to be bookmarks, which again, if you bought something physical, no additional charge. We're going to add those in there and throw them out to y'all.
All right. Yeah, the stickers is actually
very nice.
Good one. Yeah. And then our next stretch goal is trading cards. We've got an art sampler for various illustrators and comic book authors. With our current stretch goal that's already been made, I still need to put that thing together, but we have some exciting stuff in there. Yeah. So, what's your? So you're gonna bring this out. What's your next step? What do you have planned for the future?
So this is a series. I have the series mapped out. That being said, there are 2 other projects that I'm currently working on that are not in world. So I have another series that goes unnamed. As of right now, I just don't have a name for it yet, and it's about these people called arbiters, and they are dead, and they have gauntlets that lock their soul to a body, and their job is to go and hunt demons that are roaming around. So kind of a fun little thing that I've got going on there. You can't kill an arbiter. You can kill their body and then they just have to get somebody else to put their gauntlets on another dead body. A little grotesque, a little gruesome, but it's a little fun to kind of mess with.
Little grave robbing goodness.
Yeah. And then there's another series that I'm working on that's called The Worsters. Working title, and the reason why it's called that, it's about 2 twins, and they're just the worst. I wanted to have 2 people that are just rotten to the core, but for different reasons. One's a bully physically, the other is a bully emotionally, and they are just working their way through this world and just being the absolute worst.
Yeah, there was a video game with a plot very similar to that. I forgot what it was, but I saw a Let's Play of it. But it was also about a brother and a sister, and they were both like their own type of sociopaths. Yeah, that's beside the point. Continue.
Yeah. No, it's totally fine. So the first one I was talking about, it's set in definitely I would say we're gonna move out of like steampunk and into more of a cyberpunk setting. It is definitely cyberpunk. They've got hoverboards and electronic again. Blade Runner fan. That's going to be lots of neon lights and colors. The Worcesters is going to be set definitely more in that more steampunk-esque setting. Actually, probably I would even say more like gas lamp, not quite all the way to steampunk, but it's still a lot of fun.
All right. Daniel, Mr. Boncher, do you have some questions for our guest?
Well, I find it interesting on how you're shifting the genre here. Now, are you? I've always been. You said you had several side projects going on as well. What I was curious about is, are you one that prescribes to the theory of you can't write multiple projects at the same time, or do you try to chomp off everything that you can at once?
So I am ADHD as I'll get out. My mind is in 1,000 miles an hour. I am all over
Jingle,
the
jingle,
place.
shiny.
Yeah, so I love to write, and so I will write what's coming to me in the moment. Now, I strive to at least 2 days, 3 days out of the week focus on my main world. I've got a lot of people who have backed me, who have supported me, and I feel like I owe it to my group. I don't fans sounds weird. I don't feel like I have fans, but I have like supporters, and I really
If
feel
you're
like I
selling
owe it to
books, you
them to
got
keep this.
fans.
Yeah, I feel like I owe it to them to continue the story that they've already subscribed to. So I really try never to let more than a year go past before I put out another installment, another book, another story in that world. So that way they can keep that going. That being said, you know, when you're in a dry spell, I loved the Wheel of Time. When you're in, Knife of Dreams or Towers at Midnight, and you're just like walking for a whole book. It's like, hey, I got to step away from this. I want to go do something fun and fast-paced and
Hmm.
exciting, and that's why those other two side projects are very flashy and very shiny. Because it allows me to be creative for a few minutes and then get back on the wagon.
Very
So
meme level distraction. Yes.
I've also got a pretty big family, so they keep me pretty much on my toes. So I am a very regimented writer. Now, I do not tell anybody to be as prescriptive and regimented as I am. It's just I only have very limited windows of opportunity to write. So
Everybody
I have a
has to
very
find their own system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when people ask me how do you do it, I was like, don't do it the way I do it. Do it the way you do it. Do how it works for you. If you wake up at 3 in the morning every day and you write for 3 hours and go back to bed, great. That's cool. I can't do
3
that.
a.m. is a great time for me to go to bed. I'm one of those night owls.
Yeah.
My wife will go to bed, and I'm still up for 3 hours doing stuff. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Well, I always
Absolutely.
tell.
I do have to.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I have to ask. I did not catch the title of your book. If you put it in the group, that was just the coolest name of a book, and I want to make sure I grab that when it comes out.
Who are you
Oh,
Make
asking?
sure you drop
for
that in the chat. Well, it says Resonant One because I'm really bad
oh,
with names.
oh, yeah, that's all right. I'm sorry. That's just my usual screen name. No, that MD
Yeah.
Boncher. Akina Wazi Saga. There is a little bit of a story behind that. It is a linguistic joke in Ojibwe in an Icelandic manner. And it means the saga of the land of the seven freshwater seas. And the reason it's a linguistic joke is the letter Z, because there is no Z sound in Scandinavian languages, and it centers around a Viking culture.
Nice. It's awesome.
I,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll
I,
definitely have to look it up.
oh yeah, it's funny. I actually have a little joke story, if you don't mind the aside. I got to meet Terry Brooks, the author of the Shannara series. And that's staying that way is part of the joke. I got to have lunch with him at a writers conference for Christian spec fic writers. And so when we were sitting at the table, and I'd gone back and forth on whether or not to name my series Akinawazi Saga, because nobody's going to know how to pronounce it. I said, and I went back and forth with a friend of mine, and I finally said, listen, if people can figure out how to pronounce Shannara, they're going to be able to figure out over time how to pronounce Akinawazi Saga. It also makes it a very easy search term, trust me. But I said that to Terry Brooks, and he said, it's pronounced Shannara. And I just died. I'm like, that's hilarious. But the point is, people still remembered it, and even the mispronunciation doesn't matter. But it was just great. I did it because of your book, and people follow you, but then I'm pronouncing it wrong.
It does. It
Anyway,
gets
my
you
aside.
that way. Hey, I do have to ask, Bonser. So when you started creating this, and I'm really intrigued by your Kickstarter that you're running right now, because of it being like a comic book or a graphic novel, however you want to. I don't want to
I am not sure what the
nomenclature.
difference is between a graphic novel and a comic, because if I think graphic novel, then probably my new book that's also now available on Kickstarter, by the way,
Yeah.
is probably more like a graphic novel. But
For
I'm
me, it's
very intrigued.
always. Nope, you go. Nope, you go first.
I just want to know how you like. Were you the one that did the art? Did you hire somebody? How did you like get to that point? Because I really want to. Because I'm very intrigued. Because I really want to make that prologue story that I was telling you all about into something like that. I think that would be like a great, because it's a very short, condensed story, but I think it would go really well in something like that.
Johan, I met, he's my illustrator. Johan, I met on DeviantArt. For my first Kickstarter, I did a coloring book. So, A, I wanted to know how Kickstarter works, and B, I wanted to know how to commission art with artists. So, I wanted to learn that. The first one was really a learning process. In the end, I did not make a single dime on that. I probably even lost money, but anyway, I did get my first Kickstarter. Some people that still support me to this one. And yeah, so that's how I met Johan. The wonderful thing about Johan is that he is a very hard worker as well. So he just keeps pumping out more art, so I can keep commissioning him. That's already very important, because those type of illustrators are very rare. He illustrated Bound for the Sticks. He made some illustrations also for The Wrench in the Machine, and some other by the side illustrations as well. And then it was like, well, somebody had convinced me to do a comic, and I was thinking, well, what can we do for a comic? And especially the readers were really interested in arcology, the setting. Which, by the way, I'll talk later. We are working on a coloring art competition at the moment. I wanted to wait till you're going to go into full of that. But we are working on that. And I think I posted already on our community page on YouTube as well. And on our Discord. So, the comic was a story that I was already working on. It was about the discovery of Elysium and arcology. I rewrote a comic book story for that. But Johan and I are very like-minded in our approach to both history. My family's from Indonesia. He is from Indonesia with an interest in the Dutch colonial period. It's when you start with an illustrator, you gotta find a illustrator that you can trust, one that works, that actually produces. Because I had so many artists, even artists who made a number of things for me, and then I never hear from them again. That's unfortunately pretty common. So yeah, you want to have an artist that you can rely on. I mean, and if you want to do this on Kickstarter, make the art first. I've heard entire horror stories of people who work with another illustrator, and then halfway during the Kickstarter, the illustrator just vanishes.
Yeah, I've heard that horror story too. It's one of the things that's actually got me taking pause on converting the short story I have for into a graphic novel. I got one that's set aside, ready to go, scripting with it, and make it about a 36 to 64. That'd be pushing it. 48-page graphic novel based around it. But I want to make sure I have an artist secured, paid for, and the art in hand before I move forward with that.
So, yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a very great artist. He's never done like a comic book or graphic novel before. So like, I don't even know like where you would go to print. Like, do you go from to Ingram on that, or is there like a different site? So
Ingram does
it's
it.
all very intriguing to me. I think it's just really cool.
I mean, not
Yeah.
the shill's too hard for Ingram Spark, but they do it.
Yeah, Amazon too. You need to figure out a little bit how, but Kindle Create can do it. I use Ingram InDesign for the interior design stuff
Mm.
in combination with Photoshop. Illustrator would probably be better, but I don't have that at the moment. Um, and yeah, and if you want to go for a comic, start with something small, something 5 pages or something, to get the feel of it. You can offer that to magazines or something to make some money off it, or give it away for free as promotion stuff. But yeah, start with something small, and then you also know if you can trust the artist in question. Um, so yeah, that's the artist is both the your most important decision, but also your weakest link at the same time. Um,
Absolutely agree.
yeah, and don't pay until the work has been delivered. Um, unless you really trust him. Like I trust Johan enough, but Johan rarely asks me for an advance to begin with because he knows I'm good for it. But yeah, that your relationship with your illustrator is very important. Because I don't know
Cannot agree
why,
more.
but yeah, but so many have the tendency to ghost you.
I ended up having to do my first cover of Dream Nebula myself because I literally could not find an artist to come even close to the styling and look that I was going for. I do not recommend that for people. The second time I found an artist to start with, and I had to use Stable Diffusion to kind of make the two blend and fix a couple things that made it pop more. But I will tell you right now, those were weeks, if not months, of time that I would have been better served doing writing. Um, and I have a background as a graphic artist. I sort of as an aside, tacking on to what you said about payment, Bonsart. When I actually did some freelance graphic design work, I would the typical thing that we did was there was like a 25% payment on agreement, 25% upon the first proofs, and then the bulk would go at the end. But again, that's when you're dealing with a known reputable quantity. You'd go ahead with that. Otherwise, yeah, you no art, no money.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had a down payment of one artist, and he delivered a concept drawing, and then I never heard back from him again.
Ooh,
So
yeah, ouch.
yeah, so
And that
yeah.
is terrifying. I'm very fortunate. My artist is amazing. So I work with a gentleman by the name of Aaron Moschner, and he is probably one of the coolest guys I've ever worked with in my life. We've actually, over the past 5 years, gotten very close because he's done every bit of art that's in any of my books, cover design, all of it. Because I have the artistic skill of, a handless chimpanzee, so it is just not great. I can see it all up here, and I can verbally describe it when I would try to put a pencil on a piece of paper. Whew, it's pretty rough.
Yeah. Question from the chat. Rich's question for the Professor Trotter. How do you measure humanity in your cyberpunk?
How do you measure humanity?
Yeah, I
So you
think he
don't.
is referring to a system like Essence in Shadowrun, where everyone starts with 6 essence and then it degrades over time as you include more cybernetic components. I think something like that.
Cyber
Yeah, so
psychosis. When does it kick in?
Yeah.
yeah, so in my world, right, that I have created, it is a lot to do with thought and mind and what you can actually conceive. So if you've watched Altered Carbon, right? How do you measure their meat sleeves
Yeah.
and their mind is what it is. So like how do you like is the body the human or is it that chip? Well, you wouldn't think of a chip being human, right? But like they call them meat sleeves because you can just uninstall and reinstall and they're a person. And
Yeah.
I mean Now, that's up to y'all if you want to go to that whole ethical conversation. So my real life job is I'm in IT, so that's my real life outside of being an author. When I'm not raising my kids, I'm doing IT. But so I measure the humanity by the cognitive reality. So that's why, again, I said my first person. Their soul is bound to these gauntlets, and for me, there's not a difference in that world between the soul and the cognitive function. So the cognitive mind is the soul of the person, which again, you could get into a whole, I'm not doing like a theological debate on that. It's just in that world, that's how it works.
All right. Yeah, it's an interesting question. The Altered Carbon. Yeah, I loved Altered Carbon until the sister character was introduced. That's
I have to admit, I've not seen it.
yeah,
Amazingly, I've not.
yeah, and as soon as the sister characters introduced, it goes in all kinds of like anime shenanigans, and you know, I mean the mystery is cool, but that side plot is I also just hated the actress. I did not think she was doing a good job, and the character was both terribly written. So who knows who was at fault there. We've got about 10 more minutes till you need to sign off. Is there something you want to touch upon or ask us before you need to go?
Yeah, so I would say, and this can go for both of you, so you can both take a chance. So one of the unique things that I've seen, so obviously for me, the U.S. is my largest sales hub, right? But Denmark is actually number two for me. I've actually sold a large quantity of, and I say large, respectively to my sales. I should say a large percentage of my sales are, in Denmark, and I don't necessarily have a great marketing strategy. As for you two gentlemen, what have you found successful when it comes to marketing overseas or fulfillment overseas? Just kind of like, what are your thoughts? And again, I know Ingram Spark is, or fulfillment, I'd say would be a large key, but like for marketing, for making touches in other countries and places, how do y'all go about doing that?
What I do for the Kickstarter is that for the US market, I use Critical Blast. For Europe, I ship out myself during the Kickstarters. And when I have a direct sale through my Gumroad website, yes, we have our own store where you can buy everything, ebooks and also physical books. And that for the US market, I do it through Amazon, through KDP. And for Europe, again, I ship it out myself. Um,
Nice.
For me, my US is number one sales. I use Ingram Spark and then your typical online distributors. The biggest help for getting it wide online has been Smashwords of all things. And then Ingram Spark has done a really good job with that. So number one is the US. But number two, surprisingly, has been France lately. And number three has been Italy. But yeah, I've gotten them all over Europe. I believe I got one to Australia, um, and smattering here and there. But yeah, that's usually how it goes. And since I rely on Ingram Spark, they handle the global fulfillment on all that.
I had a nightmare. I had one that somebody bought a signed copy in India, and it was a nightmare getting this thing to this person. I had to send three
Mm,
different books, and it's like $60 a shipment, and it
yeah,
was obviously. And I told them up front, I was like, hey, it's extremely expensive, like, to do this. And like, I'll pay for the shipping. So they pay for the book and the shipping. So like, then it becomes on me to get it out to them, even though it was like lost two different times before they finally got it. It took almost 6 months for them to get
yeah.
their book
I,
because they
I
wouldn't. Because
Yeah, I did some. I used to work in logistics. I understand exactly how bad right now getting anything shipped
souls.
anywhere in the world. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, the only place I sell autographed books right now is at shows. My wife and I, we will go around and vend at Comic Cons, book festivals. Though our most popular have been cultural festivals, like we did Vikings Con, we did the West Virginia Celtic Fest and Highland Games, and Ren fairs. Those seem to work the best for us. But then again, I have a Viking themed book to go for that. But yeah, those are the ways that if anybody wants, autograph copies, they gotta be with us in person because otherwise the shipping and fulfillment is just nightmare territory.
All right. I think we've got time for one last remark, question, statement. Um, Go ahead, David.
Well, I can close out my portion. Obviously, thank you all for having me on and to be able to talk. I think for me, what really separates my work from the traditional and from the other is the the double edged of everything, right? Like I really I paint I work really hard to paint a picture for you to be like, this is the way reality is, and then paint and it's not always polar opposite of through another perspective. So it is a multi-perspective book. All of my books are multi-POV books, but where you just get this like, so this is the good guy, right? Right? And it's like, who is the good guy? And there's all kinds of books with more really great characters, right? But a lot of those books don't ever try to paint them as the good guy. They really are like, this is morally gray. If you've read any of Mark Lawrence's books, they're all very morally gray. If you've read Joe Abercrombie, his series, it's like, nobody's a good person. In my book, it's like, oh, this is the good guy. Like, I feel like you've spent 6 chapters really showing me the good that they're doing, and then you jump into another perspective and it's like, good at what cost? And I really, especially in today's society, it's one of those things, and I didn't set out to make this a political book, right? And it's definitely not. I wouldn't say it's a political.
Not be political, right? um did you guys just lose me?
No, we could still
I can
hear
hear
you,
you.
but your camera went off. But go ahead.
Hold on a second. I'm back. Sorry,
Okay.
somebody called me from work, and it just shut everything up. But what I was saying is I really wanted it to say, and it really stretched me as a person, right? To be like, hey, I'm gonna get into the mind of this character and how they're thinking, and then I have to turn around and write from the perspective of somebody that's just so different. They've experienced life so differently, but all in one place. I loved the story. If y'all have read Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, also another great book that I highly recommend. It all takes place in one city. And my first book almost all takes place in one city. At the end, it begins to branch out. Chains of a Broken God, the world explodes, and you really get to see the world. But I really wanted to spend that first book setting up the characters that you're going to be following, the thought processes of the people that you're going to be following, and like obviously the power scaling. I have 2 different kinds of abilities, powers, magic system, whatever you want to call it. I've got people who can draw from sources. There are 3 sources. There's a Torah, which is the cognitive light. There's Rehalam, which is the life light of the planet, like the physical. Again, think of like Avatar, your elemental powers. And then you've got Ayadoba, which is the opposition of both of those, which is death, corruption, ruin, darkness. And so you can, and it's not like one is good or bad, it's just you can draw from those things. And then I have Darius, who is this character that can do something that nobody should be able to do, and I don't want to spoil anything, which makes it really fun for the priests who find him, that their church is built around the righteous have a Torah's light. And then you've got somebody who kind of breaks all the rules that they've tried really hard to enforce in their city. And that makes it really, it's really fun because he really thinks that they're just trying to help and take care of him, and there's a whole lot going on that just really breaks open.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's my big pitch for it. Thank you so much for having me on. I would highly encourage. I think I've got 12 days. I think our Kickstarter's end on the same
we
day.
have the same number of days left. That's right.
Yeah, it's run and gun. We've already fully funded, so there will be a book. There's the artwork for the book is already completed. The cover's already been designed. The hardcover's already been designed. As we get more backers, all that means is more art goes into the book. So you're going to get a book with color art regardless. The more that we get, the more that we fund. That's just more art that gets to go in the book. because artists are not cheap, and I don't think they
No,
should
they're
be.
not.
I'm a big proponent of human art. I speak up for my human artists all the time. I don't want an AI generated book. I don't want an AI generated art in my book. So and again, different people have different opinions on that, and I love to talk AI. I sell technology. That's my job. Um, I can see the pros and cons of everything that's out there, but for when it comes to creativity and literature and reading and the enjoyment of the human species, I think the human species should be left to do that. So
Right.
that's my like little spiel. And again, when you have a book that's filled with conspiracy theories and all of that stuff, hey, that's the world I live in.
All right. Riches reminds me of the Three Kingdom novels. Nobody is a good guy, and Wrangler announced he just followed you on Amazon, Mr. Trotter. And with that, I wish you the best with your Kickstarter. I'm already pledging. I already made my pledge in my own little way. And of course, the link will be in the video description for people who want to check out the Change of a Broken God. And yes, if you ever want to go back on the show for the future, for whatever conversation, or to promote your next book, let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you both for having me on here. Thank you, Mozart, for reaching out. It's been a pleasure. And hey, best of luck on your campaign as well.
Yes.
Let's get to that 100. Let's
Absolutely.
get to that 100 followers.
Yeah, that would
Nice
be
to
amazing.
meet you too, sir.
Yes.
Thank you as well. It was a pleasure.
All right. Okay, what are your thoughts on that project, Mr. Boncher?
I tell you, that has got some real flavor to it. I mean, I'm looking at the quality. Looks really nice, and let's face it, he does not skimp on the word count.
No.
So you're
No,
getting value for your money.
Yeah. I decided to keep for that reason, I've decided to keep my books to a maximum of around 100,000, 110,000. Because after that, ebook wise, €6, I think that's, or $5.99 is probably the most you can ask for an ebook without people going like, as an unknown offer, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And for novels, 20. So.
Well, I have two strategies with mine. For my fantasy series, I will go somewhere around.
Oh, we just lost you.
Those novels, but honestly, I write until their story arc is done, which is usually about what I just said, between 100 and 120,000 or so. And then for my Tales from the Dream Nebula, that's meant to be it originally was supposed to be an anthology of short stories I was going to pile together, but I seem to not be able to write short enough, and they all turned into novellas, so they run between, I think the shortest is 35,000 words. It's a fast novella, about 200 pages.
And that's about the size of
I do.
Enwin,
Yeah, and then the largest is just under 50,000, and 50,000 seems to be, I think, the sweet spot going forward. But that also, and both of those series, Akinawazi Saga, I'm going to be finishing up the first trilogy story arc. At least it seems like it's going to be just the first trilogy story arc. That's going to finish up about, or I'm going to hopefully have that published by December 2024. I took a hiatus from that series to do Tales from the Dream Nebula because it was the project that wouldn't leave me alone. And then I have two other side books for the Tales from the Dream Nebula that will probably be making an appearance at some point. And those may or may not be longer, but they'll be off the main story arc. I'm calling them the Amplified Worlds.
Okay, yeah.
And those are based off of RPGs that I actually ran based on my setting.
Okay. Well, before we're gonna talk about your
Sure.
upcoming book, quick shilling on my part. On our Kickstarter, we now have Enwin in pre-launch, kinda, sorta. It's currently only exclusive to Kickstarter, so if you want to have Enwin, go get it. You've got 12 more days to pledge on our project. We just surpassed the €2,100, which is amazing. This book is 10% illustration, and it has way too much illustrations for its size, but yeah, and it's just so adorable. It's just great for all these images by Johan just put a smile on your face. So I would advise us just to get it for that, and it even has some comics in there as well. It was Johan's insisted on doing that, and yeah, it looks amazing. And I
Anwin
already
is terminally cute.
yeah, she really is. She really is. I also just love what Johan did with the cover, because I wanted it to have a young adult appeal, to make sure, like, folks, this is not a kid's book. I mean, as a young teenager can absolutely enjoy this, but they're also
Good.
a bit on the dark side.
I have a niece that might like that. Actually, I know of 2 little girls in my life that might like that.
All right. Well, if you want to have it before Christmas, let me know. Maybe we can
Okay.
arrange something. What else did I want to mention? Oh yes, the art contest, folks. We currently have
art.
yes, an art contest. We currently have an art contest set up. And the theme of the artist contest is Art Deco and Art Nouveau, because that's currently the most popular content on my thing right now, my channel right now. So I included my videos in Art Deco and Art Nouveau under the link, which I'm now gonna post in the chat real quick. So if you want to know, if you have no idea what the philosophy is behind Art Deco or Art Nouveau, go check it out by clicking that link. And of course, it also has all the other prerequisites. Now, I already got a question: is it enough to have a Art Deco border? I mean, there should be a bit more to the whole exercise. The whole idea is also to create like an alternative to the style of steampunk that we see, that's just cogs and gears. And it has to be something that actually contributes to the world building rather than detracts from it, which I'll be talking about in my upcoming steampunk warfare video slightly as well. But maybe I should do a separate video on the difference between the aesthetics and the genre, and how I don't think it's a good idea for the aesthetic to determine the genre, which tends to be something that happens with the steampunk thing. So, yeah. What else do I have to say? I'll make a separate video announcing the contest in more detail. But and on the contest page, I also put some examples where Art Deco and Art Nouveau are both used to lively up the image, so to speak. Yeah, so yeah, I had talked about Enwin. I might include some other things to the Kickstarter soon, like a set of wallpapers, because people really dig wallpapers, it seems. So I might
have to make some of my own.
yeah. And yeah, I think that's it for now. So let's go to our guest for tonight. We've already spoken before on Wrangler stream, but let's start
That
with...
was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. So let's start with the casual question, like, how did you end up being here?
How did I end up being here, as in my writing, or?
Yeah. As in your writing.
Well, I've always been writing to some degree or another in my life ever since I was in 7th grade, junior high. I always did a little something. I originally started out with horror and then science fiction, but then I tried in the 90s. I tried to get involved in comic books, but I really wasn't willing to make the jump to New York. I just could not bear the idea of living there to be able to break into the industry. So for me, I'm absolutely over the moon thrilled with the fact that you have self-publishing now. But it started out with my Akinawazi saga. I had a problem for many years finding any fantasy that I could read because too much of it, unfortunately, offended my faith. And it just went down paths I couldn't have in my life. And I got a little cranky about that, as I am wont to do. And so I decided to start writing a fantasy based on a Dungeons and Dragons character introduction, which I introduced my character to this game, and I was like, there's something to this character. There's something a lot more, and I took me about 13 years worth of developing it, where I could come up with a world. And I said, if I'm going to write fantasy, I'm going to write it the way I want it, and it's going to have all sorts of things I want in there. So I put in steam power. So I got steam powered Vikings because I wanted Vikings, and I knew a lot about Great Lakes history. And so my setting took a very Northwoods, natives and lumberjacks and Vikings mashed together with steam power. And then I said, well, how do you make literal Christianity something magical and fantasy? And that was what took so many years to figure out. And so I put it together, and I finally had something that I could enjoy, something that I wish I would have had when I was a youth, and was having all sorts of struggles with my own faith and whatnot. And it turned into a very gritty, epic, dark fantasy. Nobody's really clean in it, but good shines through. And only a few years ago, somebody asked me what the key takeaway that someone should take from those books, and I sat there.
Oh, we lost you again, I think.
Won't kill you.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right. A bit of the beaten path question from a guest, but
Sorry.
Let's see. Is that rock behind you from Iran?
No, it came from a furniture second store, so I have no idea where it came from. All I know is that that's, I believe, the Star of Melchizedek behind me. I think that's what that's called, which is a symbol that's revered apparently in some sects of Christianity as well as Islam. So it kind of has this weird mesh of everything. I got it because I like the color and the design, and it was great for dampening sound from the apartment that I used to have next door.
All right. You mentioned the kind of fantasy that you didn't like, but what was the fantasy you did like as a kid?
Well, I enjoyed The Hobbit, but I never got into Tolkien. I liked The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe, but I never really got into the full Chronicles of Narnia. It was weird. I actually read a fair chunk of Fred Saberhagen with his Swords series. I read dadgummit, now I can't remember the name. Piers Anthony. I read some of his or hers, my bad, and a few others. I have a very eclectic taste in fantasy because a lot of stuff didn't really grab me. So I really had a lot of pick and choose kind of thing, and it gave me a very eclectic background. I'm not a big fan of, and this is just a personal taste thing. I don't really get all fired up about dragons and elves and dwarves. Now, mind you, when I finally saw the first movie, Lord of the Rings, I read the entire Lord of the Rings series inside of 1 week, and I enjoyed it immensely. But until then, every time I tried to grab that series, I couldn't get past the birthday party. It bored me to tears. I was like, that birthday party about killed me. And I mean, the farthest I ever got was to Buckleberry Ferry, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'm 100 pages in, and still nothing's really happened. A little bit of something scary, but it wasn't until I could see that movie and get past Weathertop that I finally, all right, now this is fantasy I was expecting.
Yeah.
until then, I was just spinning my wheels going, oh, come on, get this up fun. And then, like I said, the movie said, okay, now I can visualize and know where I'm getting to. Fine, go ahead. And I enjoyed it immensely. I married a what I call a Tolkien super fan. She's one of those that read and loved the Silmarillion. So
Oh,
there's my
yeah.
Tolkien
Then you're a
influence
super
there.
fan. Yeah, if you actually enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yes, but she insists, and I agree with her. She is not the Tolkien canon police. But yeah, she was more steeped in the traditional fantasy, but she kind of stopped there. But yeah, for me, I was very eclectic. Otherwise, most of the stuff I read was either horror, detective fiction. I read a lot of sci-fi, very much into cyberpunk, and that was kind of my entree to it all.
And yeah, so how many books have you written up to now?
I have 6. Well, the 6th one will be available this December 8th. And they're in 2 series. One is what I am calling my high-flying, snarky adventure pulp punk, which I take a lot of the old-fashioned pulp-style storytelling, Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, John Carter, and I mash it together with sort of the modern punks, nanopunk, cyberpunk, biopunk. No steampunk, sorry. That was left out of this. I left the steampunk, for lack of a better term, over in my fantasy series.
All right. And so what is your next book that's going to launch on December 8th, and what's it's going to be about?
Okay. Tales from the Dream Nebula is the name of the series, and it is design-wise, I call it deco punk. But it is the 3rd book in the series is called The Waking Nightmares, and it's sort of like and I'm writing it like a TV series, so it's episodic in nature. And the first 3 novellas there are kind of the are kind of like the first 2 are the pilot episode. You get the part 1, part 2 of the pilot episode, and book 3 here is sort of like the first time where you see the team forming together of the main characters and getting there. And every novella is going to have sort of its own episode style or storyline to work with as it goes through the giant meta arc that's going to be behind the whole story, because this does have an actual undercurrent of a giant storyline, kind of like how Doctor Who did it. You had your season story arc, and then you had the individual episodes, and then the 2 interwove on the way through. So I'm doing something similar in that regard for Tales from the Dream Nebula. And The Waking Nightmares is kind of my monster movie, or my monster episode. I jokingly say it's a mashup of Aliens meets The Relic meets The Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah, okay. Question from the guest. Is there a detective monologue in your books? No pulp series complete without them.
No, I'm sorry. There is no voiceover. I know that that would be perfect in some regards, but I couldn't figure out. Believe it or not, I tell my books 3rd person, so you're not going to get the internal monologue like you would with 1st person. Say reading Robert B. Parker's Spencer books, or any of the classic Raymond Chandler or Dashiell Hammett.
All right. So your book is gonna launch in December, and
Yep.
what's next? What are your future projects?
Well, okay. In the spring, we are going to release the Tales from the Dream Nebula Origin Omnibus, and that is going to include some unpublished short stories, as well as a freebie short story that is currently still available for those that subscribe to my newsletter. And those will be in there as sort of added material for the omnibus. And then I'd love to do like what you're doing with an art contest. I'm just sort of scared of putting it out there and then having nobody even try. But I would love to include other things in there like fan art and things like that. That would be up for the omnibus. Give at least people that have bought the original books then a good reason to. And we're going to release that like a hardback. Now, Akinawazi Saga, the fourth book, aka um, the last of the first story trilogy, is going to release in December 2024. Otherwise, my wife has promised me that I will get the misery treatment. And I've had a few fans that have been more than vocal on their displeasure that I haven't finished it already. It's about 35 to 40% written currently, and so it needs to get done and get off my plate so I can either refocus, see how people like it, or get ready to start doing the next trilogy in that series, because there is one started. It just needs a massive rewrite.
All right. All right. So that's a multi-year plan.
Yeah.
Oh no,
You know how it is.
You know, I know how it is. Yeah. So I want to go for another 15 minutes because it's been a long day for me. All right. So is there something else you want to touch upon or talk about or discuss in the show while you're here?
Well, I didn't necessarily come in with much of a plan other than, hey, I get to hang out with Boncher and talk books.
Oh, mission succeeded. You were talking about doing your own Kickstarter in the future, right?
Yeah. At our last event that we were at, we had probably about 10 people ask for audiobooks, and we're like, I got nothing, and I gotta learn how to do a Kickstarter so we can find someone to narrate the books, because unfortunately I'm not set up for it. I don't feel confident in my own ability, and I'd rather make sure that my fans that are looking for these books as audiobooks get what they deserve. And so I want to do that. I also want to take, like I said, one of the short stories, I want to convert it into a graphic novel. I actually have somebody willing to back that project and get the original artwork started. The problem has been on that is A, doing the script, because B, I haven't found an artist that has a style that I'm looking for, because I have a very specific vision with Tales from the Dream Nebula. And, you know, you talk about Art Nouveau and Art Deco. I'm leaning Art Deco, streamlined, modern, more than Art Nouveau. I loved, the whole thing was inspired by watching the 1980 Flash Gordon film, and the art direction in there just boggled my mind. And even hearing the stories behind it. And so I really want that similar kind of feel. Mm-hmm. The problem is that it can't be anime. And that's the one thing. Anime or manga style has to stay far away. Otherwise, it doesn't look right to my brain. And so finding an artist that can do that kind of stuff, I mean, even looking close towards the Batman animated series style, that's kind of what I'm aiming for. But there are so few artists out there that aren't like heavily into manga as well. And I mean, you know, for those that love it, they love it. And I'm all for people loving good stuff. I like Masamune Shirow, for instance. But yeah, it just isn't right for that project. And so finding that, once I can get that, I have somebody as a backer that would be willing to at least start the process rolling, to be able to, you know, put the money in to get a Kickstarter in to get the book published. And so that's sort of the step that I have to go. I've not found any partners to work with on that as of yet. But I mean, that's why I look at your work and I'm like, oh man, you're like 1 to 2 years ahead of me on some of the projects I'd really love to do. And so, you know, you're a bit of an inspiration that way. So for what it's worth.
Great. No, thank you very much. Yeah, well, I mean, I found Johan through DeviantArt. I simply said, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and you know, then you'll get like a shitload of reactions. You know, and it might be 50 reactions and only one person is valid, but hey, that's the one person you're looking for. So my reaction would just be, there's a guy on my server who might be able to do it. He did a wonderful streamline ship. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Let me see. Let me see. Okay, no, there's no new comments. Let me see.
I will be able to only see it once it hits the YouTube screen because for some reason Discord refuses to show your camera. So
no, I can. Let me see. I can show it. I can share it in the PM. I think. Let's see. Here it is.
that is not evil, Riches. That is just knowing what you want.
Make things my way. That's right.
Oh yeah, that would be wonderful in the kind of stuff. Yeah, just sharing that picture sort of directly there. Unglaublich.
That is a ship from one of my settings. Yeah, and that was by.
Gorgeous.
Let me see. Matsaya Das. Oh wait. Let me see.
Well, if he can do panel art, I would definitely want to talk to him.
Let me see. Yeah, I found him on. I think I also found him on Kickstarter as well. There we go. You can also find him on our own Discord. If you, I don't know if you're already a member of our.
Yeah, I'm on A Drink with Crazy and a couple others.
Okay, yeah, well, I also have a Radio Retrofuture Discord, so that's the one there.
Oh,
that's the
okay.
one he's on. Yeah.
Okay, I will probably have to get on that.
I'll send you an invite later because right now I'm recording in Discord. So. But yeah, he did that under my art direction. I see David is still with us in the chat. Yes, Chief Inspector Hallock is one of my favorite. Oh, Harlock. Yeah. He also that one also had some amazing art design. Like I didn't care for it. I saw the 3D movie they made, and that's some interesting art design. But that really old 90s, 70s, 90s anime style.
Oh,
the golden age of anime.
I love my Robotech, but I unfortunately have. I can't take most of the anime artwork out there unless it's really high quality.
You're talking about BattleTech. Oh
no!
No, Robotech. No, sorry, you're right. No.
Yeah, Robotech.
Robotech.
Yeah, I mean, I know what it is. It's low quality, good times. It's very much the epitome of anime punk, or I mean, anime pulp. Mm-hmm. So I totally get it. Robot porn.
Mm-hmm. No, I actually got this image from one of the original BattleTech artists.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that earlier on. That is some good stuff. What was the name of the artist again?
Eldon Cowger.
Okay. See, I'm familiar with Dwayne Luce when they started putting out the BattleTech tech manuals back in the mid '80s.
Oh, he's a current one. He's making the last few books. So yeah, but he also does work for Tech Talks BattleTech, which if you want to get into the lore of BattleTech, I highly recommend. It's both funny and historical, educational, and
I'd love to actually write for that universe. I really would. That would be a fun shared universe to get into. Yeah. I used to play MechWarrior Online.
Well, that's kind of like what I try to emulate with my series, with the Casket Girl series, and my upcoming Knights of Avalon, which is, yes, as corny as it sounds. But yeah, it's basically that, very similar in kind of like military political intrigue stuff. Mm-hmm. And the reaction so far to the manuscript of the Casket Girls has been very overwhelming. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm still looking for more people who want to critique it. I think it's for 50,000 words. It's also a novella, bit thicker than N1. But yeah, that's my first venture into military steampunk. So
I never served, so I get nervous about writing military, military or police. I've never been either one of those, so I get nervous about doing that stuff.
Yeah. Have military people read it? I'm not sure. But yeah, well, I mean, this is completely fictional, and it's a penal legion, so it functions like no real military. And yeah, we'll see.
Right.
I'll try to get some of my. I've got some backers who did have military service, so we'll see. All American.
Yeah. I have a few friends who are in the military, and
Mhm.
they'd probably roast me if I got it wrong.
Yeah.
They're happy. They're happy with my action sequences being really good and easy to follow. But
Mm. Yeah. All right.
yep. Otherwise,
Yeah. Do you have some closing statements for today?
well, just like I said, I kind of write in two different veins. If you're looking for something that's a little more philosophical, dark, and got horror as well as steam power, and a very North American flavor to fantasy, you might want to check out um, Akinawazi Saga. It is, I set out originally trying to find my own unique voice, but only discovered it after I mashed up a bunch of stuff that I liked and discovered that like cooking, you find different ways to use the same old spices and you come up with a neat new dish. And that's sort of what happened. The fourth book, like I said, I hope to have released by next December, not this December, the next one. We're trying to aim for 2 book releases minimum a year now. And from there, we will be. That one has the working title of The Prodigal's Return, and that's prodigals is in plural. Um, and for Tales from the Dream Nebula, that releases on December 8th. And we have all sorts of fun things gearing up for that. I ultimately want to turn that into an tabletop RPG, and an open world for other people to be able to write in. And if stuff gets written sort of as a fan level and it's good enough and it fits well with the setting, I'm open to starting to include other authors into that. So they won't be able to take the main characters. That's got to be its own separate storyline. But they would be able to create their own and build in the universe. So check it out if you're looking for some new kind of series to write in. I'd be more than happy on that. And as always, I'm looking for people for fan art and whatnot that I can feature. So I try to be very open and accommodating to people that are interested in my creations.
Yes. All right. Yeah, I also should get like writing stream started for my own series, so for people to explore. We got a 2-step process for that that I also need to clarify at one point. I hope to have a conversation with my RPG developer about that very soon, so we can get that started. For myself, folks, right now, Enwin is a Kickstarter exclusive, currently available on the Kickstarter as a late ticket. I also have merch that I hope to sell a bit more of because these cards and patches are amazing. Especially this new one of the association, I'm very happy with. And the cards are also a great way to surprise people. Or just frame them and put you on the roll. There are several people who have done that as well. And what else? Yeah, and of course our special editions, which I'm very proud of, and I hope to sell more of them. Yeah, I think that is also it on my side for the evening. Now, I like to end my episodes with some words of wisdom from our guest to our audience. Do you have something good to end on?
Your own version of the quiz by Bernard Pivot, taken by James Lipton for Inside the Actors Studio. Words of wisdom. I could be pithy and just say incoming fire has the right of way. But words of wisdom. I'd say if you're writing, keep at it. You're only going to get better with practice. And don't be afraid to show people. I've run into so many writers that they're afraid to show people, but because they're afraid they'll get ridiculed or whatever. But if you show people, but you got to be brave and show that first person and get some good feedback, and listen to your feedback. I'll quote Neil Gaiman on this one, saying, if someone tells you that there's something in your story they don't like, they're almost always right. If they tell you how to fix it, they're almost always wrong. But at least listen to them and get some good ideas.
Yes.
If you can do that, you're going to constantly improve in your craft.
Yeah, Rich has asked us, David Trotter in the chat, if he has any words of wisdom. I'm afraid he's gonna have to return for the show for that. Yeah. And yes, Wrangler agrees. Yes, that holds so many back. It does. It really does. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, Mr. Boncher, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. And if you ever want to be back on the show to talk whatever, let me know.
Absolutely, I'm down to clown.
Yeah. And again, I really should get the writing collaborations on my end started. I really should. But yeah, for now, please tell everyone about the art contest. I'm really looking forward to see how many people will join us. The last time we had a coloring competition. Yeah, and there were more responses than I thought there would be. So yeah, I considered doing that like beside it as well, but we do have a lot of Anwin black and white, so maybe we can make that a children's coloring contest for the Anwin Kickstarter. We're gonna take Anwin to Kickstarter at some point. I don't know what our next Kickstarter is gonna be right now. Maybe the illustrated version of the Casket Girls, Volume 1. But we'll have to see. First, I have to see how much we're gonna make with the current one. But I'm very happy to see we've got so many digital sales. Really
that is great.
Yeah. And with that,
most of my sales are physical copies.
Yeah, I mean, of course, on one end, I'm happier with physical copies, but the money from digital sales, it's like, oh, Kickstarter is gonna take its cut, and the rest is yours. So
yes,
yeah, and some people just don't have room on their shelves anymore for new books.
Oh, lies! You can always insulate your home with books.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's insulation. That's a good one. Yeah. Okay. Well, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, I really need some rest right now. It's been a very long day. I'm gonna try and put out a new video by tomorrow morning, so the backers can watch part 2 of the Ghulam Ali video. The art that Alex Castro has made for it is amazing. I hope more. Yeah, I should also shill my Ream Stories page. It's kind of like Patreon for writers and readers. I also had Michael Evans on the show who runs that, and I'm really enjoying it because I can just schedule everything automatically. But yeah, or buy a digital one and then a physical version for a keepsake. Yes, you can do that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna bid you adieu. And as always,